Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk is live and direct on a Tuesday. Hi, hello, how the heck are you? So good to be with you on this afternoon. We're with you for the next 3-ish hours on the sports voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. Go like and subscribe. However, wherever, whenever you're joining the program today, thanks so much for being a part of 580 Sports Talk. My name is Dan Lucero. Delighted to be with you on this Tuesday with so much to discuss. Obviously, the lead story today, Jack Caglione just hit a home run in the Royal spring training game. We're going to lead with that because it was a big old honkin' dong, 460 feet, 115 miles an hour off the bat. Folks, the Royals are back. Jack is back, and the Royals are back. We'll get to some baseball a little bit later on in the show, but I thought I would share that for folks who may not have been following along with some Royals spring training baseball today. They are playing the Reds in Goodyear. I've been to that park. That's a nice park. And they are on top 4-1. Josh Rojas is also homered for the Royals. Second straight day for him. He's trying to steal that 26th roster spot. In fact, he has 3 RBI. He has an RBI double in the 4th inning for the Royals as well. So 3 runs driven in for Josh Rojas today. Maybe a name to put in your hip pocket. Somebody who could break with the club as that 26th man as things are currently trending. But we are delighted to be with you today and have a lot to actually talk about that is not just baseball. We are going to talk some Kansas basketball because KU, well, they did what they always do. They won on Big Monday at home. You know, we gave Tom Izzo an entire month based on one national championship and a couple other Final Four appearances. Remember that? Remember how we did that? We gave Tom Izzo the entire month. We said January, February, Izzo, April, May. You know how people do that? How cutesy they get. We gave Tom Izzo a whole month because he won one national championship one time. I think it's past time we started referring to the days of the week as Sunday, Self, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Bill Self owns Big Monday. That is his day. 41-0 at the Phog on Big Monday. KU with a taking care of business kind of win last night over the Houston Cougars. And not a game that went down to the wire either. They played out the string after the under 4 TV timeout. 69-56 ended up being the final score, but Kansas dominated the basketball game, and they dominated the basketball game with defense and showed that they have national championship caliber defense because they have the best and most versatile defensive player in the country. Flory Badunga scored 4 points last night, was the best player on the court, the most important player on the court. You can quibble with best because really nobody was bad for Kansas last night. Trey White was really good. Melvin Council did Melvin Council things. Bryson Tiller had a double-double. Darryn Peterson got 14 points in 30 minutes of action. And we'll have plenty more to say about DP later on in the show. But Flory Badunga was the most important player last night, even though he only scored 4 points. And he is the reason why Kansas has a defense that they can hang their hats on. So we'll get to that. We'll talk all about the game. We'll talk about that comment from Kelvin Sampson in his post-game availability where he said, Kansas is one of those teams where you just never know. And he had to be talking about one guy, right? Like, that wasn't really about Kansas, was it? When Kelvin Sampson said that. What he had to have been talking about one guy. And we all know who that one guy is. That's right, it's Cole Rosario. No, of course, it's Darryn Peterson. That felt very targeted in a way that I was a little bit surprised. Like, Kelvin Sampson is not going to get up on the podium and BS you. It's part of why I like him. Like, I really have, outside of, I don't have favorite teams, right? Like, I like seeing Kansas and Kansas State do well. Obviously, Kansas State not hitting that particular mark this season, but we like seeing Kansas and Kansas State do well around here. Like, I didn't go to KU like our pal Brendan Dworzinski. Did I introduce myself? I'm Dan, by the way. I'm Dan Lucero. I'm the host today. Spencer Dupuis will be along for a bit. Brendan Dworzinski will be along as well. But, like, I didn't go to KU like Brendan did, right? Like, I don't have that sort of tie that binds me to one or the other Kansas school. I just like to see them do well because it's good for business. And it's a lot more fun to talk about winning teams around here. It's a bummer to talk about a losing team. So I root for the success, the general success of Kansas and Kansas State in that way. But I'm not, painting my face. I'm not painting the Jayhawk on my cheek when I roll in Allen Fieldhouse, right? So I don't root. I don't have a favorite team. But I admire certain programs, and I admire Houston, and I admire Kelvin Sampson. I like that program. I like to watch them play. I like to watch them succeed in March. And I generally have a lot of time, a lot of respect for Kelvin Sampson. But I thought that was a really strange and kind of pointed thing for him to say, and it really did kind of feel like it was about one guy. And speaking of that one guy, we're going to talk about him too, because Darryn Peterson was not a superstar last night. He was far from it. He was not efficient in scoring his 14 points. But he was two things. And if he is these two things the rest of the season, and he has not always been one of these things, I don't need to tell you, but if he is these two things the rest of the season, the sky's the limit for Kansas, as we saw last night. Available and additive. If he is those two things the rest of the way, Kansas has an unlimited ceiling down the stretch. So plenty to say about Big Monday last night. Also on the program today, we're going to get to some Chiefs because Brett Veach spoke earlier today at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis, said two things in particular that I thought were really interesting. One thing that I have been saying and kind of feeling for a while now about the Chiefs offense, but another thing that I thought was really revealing about the roster building strategies that the Chiefs have employed the last couple of seasons relative to the direction they're probably heading this offseason. And so we'll get into that, Brett Veach's comments from earlier today. We'll get into some baseball, continue our countdown to Royals opening day. We have a guest on the program today, Michael Swain of Phog.net will join us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for Jayhawk Weekly. We'll get his thoughts on KU's win last night, everything else going on in Jayhawk athletics with Michael Swain of Phog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. And we'll have our other typical Tuesday shenanigans. What is wrong with you? We got sports headlines, top of the 5 o'clock hour. Get to some random question Tuesday, maybe AMA, because we do have high school basketball tonight. That's why I said 3-ish hours earlier today. We're going to break away at some point in the 5 o'clock hour, approximately 5:45, for our final Tuesday night hoops doubleheader of the regular season. It's the final week of the high school regular season, at least for the big schools. 4 through 6A are playing out the string in the regular season. Not playing out the string. A lot of teams fighting for sub-state seeding, but this is the final week of the regular season. And so it is our final Tuesday night hoops doubleheader. It's our first trip this year to Washburn Rural. We'll get to see the Junior Blues taking on Topeka High. We had their first meeting earlier this month at the Dungeon back on February 6th. This is the rematch between Washburn Rural and Topeka High. Myself and Larry Latimer will be on the call. Hope you'll join us tonight. Again, we anticipate pregame coverage at around 5:45. While we're here on the show today, we want to hear from you. The text line is open. 785-272-9429 is the number. That's 785-272-9429. You can also get at us in the live chat on our YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk is the name of the channel. Go subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. We're at a nice roundish number right now. We're at 925 subscribers going into today. The party we're going to throw when we get to 1,000, you've never seen anything like it. So help us get one step closer and be our next subscriber to our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Go slam that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything but a click. And while you're watching on YouTube, live, when we are live on 580 WIBW, there's a live chat feature. You can type in your thoughts, your questions, interact with your fellow listeners, and interact with your hosts. I see Mark H. McFly's in. Good to see you, McFly. Christopher and Andrew also in the live chat today. Look forward to hearing from you folks and a good deal more of you as we go along here today on 580 Sports Talk. Kansas 69, Houston 56 last night at the Phog. I said I thought KU would win, and it's very gratifying as a sports talk host when you identify the things that you feel like, well, these are the keys, right? These are the things that have to happen if the outcome that I am predicting will happen happens. And it was very gratifying to have been right on the nose on the two things that Kansas had to do last night to win the game. Now, I didn't think it was going to be comfortable in the final minutes. I didn't think Kansas was going to lead by double digits for the better part of the second half. I did not see that coming at all. But the two things we talked about on yesterday's show, that Kansas was going to have to do to win that game. They were going to have to make it really hard for Houston's guards to score because Houston does not have that reliable interior scoring presence that they've had over years, like they had last year with Javier Francis. And I felt really smart because Fran Fraschilla made the exact same point about 3 minutes into the game that Houston just doesn't have the guy they can throw it into. He'll back you down and he'll score in the post. They are very reliant on what their guards give them on offense. And the guard trio of Emmanuel Sharp, Milos Uzan, and Kingston Flemings, all really good players, had really bad nights last night. Those three combined to go 10 for 35 from the field. Sharp, in particular, wasn't 1 of 10 from the floor. That group also just 3 for 13 from 3. And the defensive adjustment that Kansas made was to put Flory Badunga on Milos Uzan for a handful of possessions out on the perimeter. And when they did that, Houston didn't know what to do. You could tell that Houston did not have a lot of confidence in how to attack Kansas's defense by how many of their possessions went deep in the shot clock. That's not a team that finds itself scrambling offensively as often as they found themselves scrambling last night. We're going to get to Flory Badunga a little bit more here because I thought, again, he was the most important player in the game last night. But that was the thing that Kansas had to do. They had to make life hard for those guards, which is a lot easier said than done. And those guys, none of them had a good game. There was a stretch where Flemings put together, I think there was an 8-0, maybe a 7-0 run, got it to within, I want to say 12. And that was all Flemings, or at least a big part of that was Flemings. He's really good. I'll tell you, not many guys are better with that pull-up mid-range jumper than Kingston Flemings. He knows how to get to his spot, and he's quick to get up. You can't really contest it. If you're his size, you can't really get up to contest it, and he just pogos straight up, and he knocks down that 15-footer. Like, that's the thing he's done all year. When he had 42, I think it was, against Texas Tech, that was what he did the entire game. Kansas didn't really let him get to his spot and get that shot very often. When he got it, he usually made it, but he didn't get to that spot very often. Milos Uzan couldn't do anything, and Emmanuel Sharp couldn't make a shot. This was a masterpiece in doing what Bill Self always talks about doing, make the other team play bad. I don't know if that's grammatically correct. Do you say bad or badly there? I don't know. That's a question for an English teacher. But making the other team play bad. Bill Self talks about that a lot. Kansas made Houston play bad last night, particularly the guards, and there was no interior presence that was going to bail them out. Like Chris Sinak, he comes and goes. Like, I like him. He's just a freshman. I think he could probably use another year of college ball, refine his shot, get a little bit stronger. Like, I've seen him be really good for stretches. I don't think I've ever seen him be really good for a full game. He was 4-13 from the field. JoJo Tugler got in immediate foul trouble, which is a very JoJo Tugler thing to do, and he didn't have much impact on the game. And there was nobody else. Like, when announcers are saying with a straight face, boy, this Houston is really getting a quality contribution from Mercy Miller. When you're saying things at the end of the game like, oh, man, how much worse could this have been if not for Mercy Miller's contributions? Then you know that is comprehensive defensive dominance on the part of Kansas. And it shouldn't be a surprise. Kansas is a top 10 defensive team in America, according to Ken Palm's defensive rating. They are number 10 in the country, in fact, in that stat. And that's not all because of one guy, but it's a lot because of one guy. Because that one guy, Flory Badunga, is the best defender in the country. And he's the best defender in the country because he's the most versatile defender in the country. The sequence that stands out from last night was the sequence where he was guarding Milos Uzan on the perimeter, forced him to give the rock up, and then recovered on the play to get to the paint and rebound a missed three. He just does everything on the defensive end. Just to give you an idea of how valuable Flory Badunga is, because he was the most important player last night, and with all due respect to Darryn Peterson and Melvin Council, I got to believe he's the most valuable Jayhawk. And the one stat that points to that is net rating. Offensive rating and defensive rating is a pretty simple number in the end to understand. It is essentially points scored or allowed while a player is on the floor per 100 possessions, just to make it an even number of possessions so that you balance out, basically tempo, how many possessions a team might play per game. You balance it out, you divide the number by, you multiply the number by 100, points per possession times 100, and you get a number that obviously is going to turn out right around 100, which is a good number of points to score in a basketball game, right? I mean, a college game, it's great. Flory Badunga, when he's on the court for Kansas, the Jayhawks have an offensive rating of 118.0. That's how many points per 100 possessions they score with Flory Badunga on the court. They allow just 99.5. So another way to interpret that, less than a point per possession when Flory's on the floor defensively. That's a net rating, 18.5. They are plus 18.5 points with Flory Badunga on the floor. When he's not on the floor, Kansas is minus 8.3 points. And their defensive rating goes all the way from 99.5 to 109.9. They're nearly a whole 10.5 points worse defensively when he's off the floor. Still decent, but not elite. 99.5 is an elite defensive rating. Oh, yeah, and the offense crashes when he's not on the floor either. They go an offensive rating of 118.0 to 101.6. So the drop-off on offense is even bigger than the drop-off on defense. He might be the most valuable player in the country, Flory Badunga. And you could measure that last night by the impact he made in a game where he scored just 4 points. But again, it's not just him. It can't be just one guy that makes you the best defensive team in the country. Like or one of the best. Like that's what when Kansas was really good in 2020, that team that probably wins the Natty if not for COVID. I will argue that. I will believe that forever. All due respect to folks in Durham or Waco or Dayton. There were other good teams that year, but I thought Kansas was the cream of the crop. Why were they great defensively? Well, they had Udoka, who was the best defensive player in America that year. They also had Marcus Garrett. And that was important too. So it's never just one guy. But Flory Badunga is that important to Kansas on the defensive end. The rest of the group, though, I thought played really well. I thought the communication on defense in particular was outstanding, and it got better as the game went along. There were a few times in the first half, guys that get caught on switches, and it would lead to really easy Houston layups. You could see after the play, some Kansas players stand around and kind of pointing like, hey, where are you? You're supposed to be here. You could see that there were some breakdowns of communication. They got those tightened up in the second half, and Houston couldn't do anything. Defensive masterclass for the Kansas Jayhawks last night. And so we don't even really talk much about KU's offense. The best part of what they did offensively last night was Trey White's back. Trey White has found his three-point stroke. I forget who had the numbers. I think it might have been our guy, Michael Swain. We'll have to ask him if it was him when we talked to him at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. But I think about him and Michael Swain, who had the shot heat map. Trey White out of the left corner is like 41% three-point shooter. Trey White out of the right corner is only like 23%. He has a favored corner. That you don't usually see that kind of split between corners. Trey White got to his spot last night, got to that left corner and started knocking down some shots in a way that Kansas hasn't really seen him knock down shots. And you could tell it lifted the confidence of the rest of his game. He was effective on defense. He grabbed 5 rebounds. He was 3 of 4 from deep, 6 of 9 from the field, game high 23 points. That's the version of Trey White. They don't need 23 from him every night, but they do need him to be assertive, and they do need him to be a confident and reliable three-point shooter. Other than that, I think KU was great on offense. I think a lot of that is they play a really over 12 times and has a way of the one thing they did do and score another point for my keys to the game here. Kansas got to the line. They were aggressive. They attacked Houston's defense, and they got to the charity line, and they made it count. They were 18 of 20 from 3 in the game. Or from 3. 18 of 20 from 3 would be something. 18 of 20 from the line, the free throw line in the game. Outstanding performance. And that's the talking point. That is the talking point from last night. How well KU played, how well KU defended, how they took control of the game. And yeah, you want to say it's a bad spot for Houston, spot for anybody at Kansas. It's the back end of a grueling 3-game stretch for Houston. You want to say they maybe weren't at their best? That's probably true. There's an element of that to it. But Kansas made them play bad in a way that showed the blueprint for March success. It's that level of defensive focus. It's that level of defensive effort, and it's the big fella in the center of it all. We'll take a time out here at 580 Sports Talk. Want your reaction to last night's game? 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Also looking to hear from you in the live chat on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, Kelvin Sampson kind of threw a little elbow at one particular Jayhawk with his post-game comments, I thought, in a way that really surprised me. We'll talk about what he meant when he said you just never know with the Kansas Jayhawks. That's coming up on the other side of this break. You're listening to 580 Sports Talk. 3:32 on 580 Sports Talk. We're just getting started on this Tuesday. Again, we'll be off around 5:45 tonight for the final 580 Preps Tuesday Night Hoops doubleheader of the season. Washburn Rural hosting Topeka High tonight. I'll be on the call with Coach Larry Latimer. Hope you'll join us from the gym that somebody along the line, I don't know if it was Jake LeBon or somebody else. Jake's the one who passed it to me, and I'll pass it to whoever the next guy is after me, and we'll keep it going down the line. Call the gym at Washburn Rural the House of Blues, because see, they're the junior blues. See, and we're just so devastatingly clever. We'll be there tonight, and hope you'll join us. 5:45 approximately pregame coverage, scheduled tip time for the girls' game 6 o'clock, and the boys' game to follow. Lots more to come on the Kansas win last night over Houston. In the 4 o'clock hour, we'll talk a little bit more about the Darryn Peterson of it all. Played 30 minutes, scored 14 points, handled the ball a little bit more than we've maybe seen him handle the ball. That was intentional. CJ Moore laid that out, and another outstanding piece of his at The Athletic today. If you haven't read that, you should. But it's interesting that you keep anticipating more from Peterson. And maybe it just isn't there because of the injury that he's been fighting through, the injuries, the various issues that he's been trying to fight through. But if the version of Darryn Peterson last night is what Kansas gets, which is the most overqualified, space-creating, three-point shooter and occasional ball handler in America, how good can Kansas be if that's what Darryn Peterson they get? Yeah, as long as they get it for 30 minutes a night, which I think is an entirely reasonable ask. And frankly, the only reason he didn't play more, it seems, is because he got in some first-half foul trouble and had to sub out with about halfway through the first half. But Peterson himself spoke to the media last night and had one comment in particular that seemed like very heavy, almost a sad thing to hear from Darryn Peterson. And so we'll get into that because, look, that is just where we are at with Darryn Peterson. He doesn't talk to the media a lot, so every time he does, we're going to scrutinize what he says. And he doesn't play full games a lot, so every time he does, we're going to scrutinize what he did in that full game. He helped Kansas win last night, despite not being their best player or their second best player. You could argue even their third best player last night. That's good. That's positive for Kansas, that they don't need him to be the prince who was promised to go beat a good team at home. That's a positive development. So more on that a little bit later on. I did think it was interesting. And CJ Moore had this anecdote. This was the lead to his article in The Athletic today. And we'll talk to CJ on Thursday's show. That Kelvin Sampson, when he was wrapping up his post-game remarks in the media room at Allen Fieldhouse last night, said Kansas is one of those teams that you just never know, but they can be pretty good. What did he mean by that? And I'm not the only one asking that question. Darryn Peterson asked that question. Peterson got up from his own media availability and, the scrum was over with. They were done taking questions, and he asked, what did Kelvin Sampson, what did he mean by that? What was he talking about? And when CJ or somebody, I don't know if it was CJ, it was somebody in the press room kind of relayed what it was that Kelvin Sampson had actually said, Peterson's response was, "Damn, I don't like to hear that." Which is that the kind of response you would get from a guy who doesn't care about his team, just about himself? Nah, I don't think so. But let's be really honest about that remark. That was 100% about Darryn Peterson. That is what Kelvin Sampson meant. I can't imagine what else he could possibly have meant by saying Kansas is one of those teams where you just never know. What is the thing you don't know about? What is that thing? I think you feel pretty knowledgeable at this stage of the season. We're on February 24th, 3 games left in the regular season. What don't you know? You know Flory Badunga is the best defender in the country. You know what Melvin Council is. You know what Trey White is. You know that Bryson Tiller is capable of some positive things as a freshman and what he's generally going to bring on a night-in, night-out basis. You know who's coming in off the bench. Typically, it's just two guards, right? It's Jamari McDowell and Elmarco Jackson, and maybe a little bit of Cole Rosario sprinkled in here and there, but that's the bench right now for Kansas. Jaden Dawson is not a factor. Paul Mbia doesn't play unless there's an emergency. What don't you know? Everybody knows the answer to this question. You don't know if Darryn Peterson is going to play, and you don't know how much he's going to play. So that's what Kelvin Sampson meant. That was a shot at Darryn Peterson. Whether he intended it to be a shot is one thing, but it was. And I'm surprised that Kelvin Sampson would let that slip in a press conference. He's not a BSer. So again, was why I like Kelvin Sampson in the first place. But I'm surprised he let that one slip on the podium, because that was 100% about Darryn Peterson. Kansas is one of those teams you just never know. What don't you know? It's February 24th. You know your team. Every coach feels like they kind of know their team at this stage. What don't you know about Kansas? Darryn Peterson's availability. So I don't know if Peterson intended that or heard that as about his team or about himself, if he's going to internalize that as about his team or about himself. But it was about him. And I was really surprised to hear that. To hear that Sampson would say that. I have a texter from the 785 who disagrees, says that he thinks that Sampson was referring to how poorly Kansas played on Saturday. And I would agree with you if they had a track record of playing that way, and they don't. They laid an egg on Saturday. That's 100% correct. But that is the first time Kansas has played like that since like the West Virginia game. That would be inaccurate to state that Kansas is a team you don't know what effort you're going to get from them. They had a bad one on Saturday. They did. But there's a difference between having a bad one and you're a trick-or-treat basketball team. And this Kansas team is not that. So I would push back on that notion that Sampson was talking about Saturday in particular and saying, well, that's who Kansas can be. That came out of nowhere for everybody. That's not who they've been at all. And if Sampson meant that, then he should have said that. If Sampson felt like, well, you don't know what you're going to get effort-wise from this team, he should have said that. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, we got a lot more to say about this one. A lot more to say about Darryn Peterson, his effort last night. We're going to get into more of it with Michael Swain, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Brett Veach, Chiefs general manager, spoke to the media earlier today in Indianapolis, said two things that stood out to me. One, about roster construction that I thought was really, really interesting. And one thing I've been kind of feeling myself for the last 2 months that I think Brett Veach is right about. We'll get into that when we come back on 580 Sports Talk. 344 on 580 Sports Talk. Y'all revved up for the Underwear Olympics this week? NFL Scouting Combine. Get to see some dudes have their hands measured, run 40-yard dashes. Remember when the NFL got a little high on their own supply and thought, we're going to put this on television in prime time. People are going to watch this. We're going to make it prime time television. And people are like, yeah, we can find some other things to do. You put it on in the middle of the day, maybe we'll put it on in the background, like at work. But we're not really here for the primetime NFL Scouting Combine. That's the one, maybe the only time that the NFL's gotten too high on its own supply. And thought, yeah, man, we can feed these people anything, and they'll watch it. And they were wrong about the Combine in primetime. That's the only time they've been wrong. But the Scouting Combine is this week. Brett Veach is, of course, in attendance. Chiefs general manager spoke to the media earlier today. Said two things in particular that jumped out to me. One of them, discussion of the running game. I don't think I shared this. Every now and again, my wife will go to bed, my kid's in bed. Sometimes I can't sleep. I'll fire up YouTube on the app or whatever, watch old sports highlights, because I'm a dude. And I'll watch old videos like MLB Vault or NFL Throwback. So the NFL account on YouTube has been rolling out best plays of the year, 100 best plays of the year, 100 best throws of the year, 100 best catches of the year. They had the 100 best runs of 2025, 100 best runs of the season. So you would expect 32 teams in the NFL. You would expect each team to have appeared on there just on average 3 times, 3-ish times. Chiefs didn't have any top 100 runs. Not a single one. Not one. You already know the raw stat that the Chiefs had 3 runs of 20 or more yards all season, and only one of them came from a running back, Kareem Hunt against Jacksonville. The other 2 were an end around for Xavier Worthy, I want to say against Baltimore, and I think a scramble for Mahomes against, I think it was Philadelphia. Well, none of those plays were a top 100 run of 2025. I think the Giants, because I started paying attention about halfway through, wait a minute, Chiefs aren't going to be on here, are they? I think the Giants were the only other team in the NFL not to have had a top 100 run of 2025. Very unscientific way to look at just how bad the Chiefs run game was, but anecdotally, that feels right. Chiefs defense was on there, I think, 3 times. There was the big up the middle run by that guy whose name I don't even remember for Dallas on Thanksgiving, scored that long touchdown. There was Trevor Lawrence's game-winning touchdown run. Not a great run, but I guess he did fall down. And then Justice Hill, the long run for Baltimore when that game was already decided and the Chiefs had Cole Christensen and Daniel Sorensen was in on that play somehow, and somebody from Section 133 was in at linebacker. Yeah, I thought that was a dumb one to put on there, but whatever. It was a long run. Anyway, another way to show how sorry the Chiefs were at running the football. This was Brett Veach's quote. Certainly, we want to get more explosive in the running game. We've invested in that interior with Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey, 2 of the best in the league, and we thought Kingsley made a big step. Those are 3 talented interior players. We've talked about it, and Coach has done an amazing job with his staff cranking on that scheme eval. But I think being more explosive in the running game and really taking advantage of those interior 3 to impose your will on an opposing team's defense. The running game takes a lot of pressure off of everybody. So I think if we can be more explosive and more effective in the running game, obviously, we take a lot of pressure off Pat, especially coming back early in the season with an injury. So this does feel like the next frontier of significant investment on offense, where when the Chiefs first failed to win a Super Bowl, they made the decision, we're not failing like this again. We are going to invest in our offensive line. We are not ever going to wind up in a situation where we have to start Mike Remmers in the Super Bowl ever again. We are investing in our offensive line. Go and get Joe Thuney. Go and get Orlando Brown. Draft in the year after. Draft Creed Humphrey. Draft Trey Smith. Really investing in that offensive line for the short and the long term. And that investment has paid dividends. Well, now the Chiefs failed in 2025 because the offense was too one-dimensional and too predictable. They could not run the ball. And for all of the Chiefs' desire and Patrick Mahomes' desire to air it out and be aggressive and stretch the field, you can't do it when the safeties don't have to play up because they don't respect the run. Having to respect the run threat, I think, is just going to do wonders for the Chiefs' offense next year, provided they get it right. And getting it right could look like a bunch of different things. Like, doesn't sound like Breece Hall is happening. The news today that the Jets are going to franchise him if they can't work out a long-term deal. Kenneth Walker maybe hits the market. I don't know. Travis Etienne sounds like he's going to hit the market. I'd do that if I were the Chiefs. I'd certainly take a look at him. Maybe it's a big-ticket free agent and Jeremiah Love. Maybe it's running back number 2. Maybe it's like a Tyler Algier and a Jeremiah Love. Maybe it's a big-ticket free agent and a speed back in the draft in the second or third day. But it feels like that's where the Chiefs are going to invest, is figuring the running game out. Because the hardest piece of that is, can you block for it? And the answer for the Chiefs is yes. They figured out the hard part. Now they got to dial back in on, all right, now we need to get some guys who will actually hit the hole that's designed for them instead of just stomping their feet really, really hard and falling forward for a 2-yard gain. Sorry to Isaiah Pacheco. He deserves better than that. He's a champion. The other thing that I thought that Brett Veach said was really interesting, talking about roster building. This was part of the quote. I think this was the last question he was asked. And he said this, quote, "The last few years, we were in a maintenance stage, and now we're trying to rebuild this thing again." I think for a GM and a personnel staff, that's exciting. I think that's really interesting to hear Brett Veach say that aloud, that the last couple of seasons, the focus was primarily on, we have this championship roster. Let's keep it together. Let's maintain this roster that is winning championships, that won back-to-back championships and played for a third the very next year. And that accounts for, some of the extensions that the Chiefs have that now they're looking to get off of, like Mike Dana, who was cut yesterday, like Noah Gray, like Drew Tranquil, who might not be Chiefs next year. But I thought that was really revealing that the Chiefs are kind of now pivoting from, all right, we have this championship core, we're going to keep all these guys together, to, all right, now we have to build the next championship team. And obviously there are foundational pieces already in place. Mahomes for the long haul. Chris Jones is a foundational piece. We know they think George Karlaftis is a foundational piece. Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. Where's the rest of that foundation? I think this is the offseason where you really start to lay that. You start to see the Chiefs lay that. We'll take one final timeout. We'll come back. We'll wrap up this hour of 580 Sports Talk. 354 on 580 Sports Talk. Don't wait, folks. St. Jude Dream Home tickets will sell out. Only 7,000 tickets available. The sooner you reserve yours, the more bonus prizes you could win. For just $100, you'll help save the life of a child and have the chance to win a brand new $410,000 home built by Drip A Homes. Reserve your tickets today at 580WIBW.com. Royals in action today in the Cactus League. They're in the 7th inning with a 4-3 lead. Tough Cactus League debut for Royals closer Carlos Estevez. Gave up a pair of solo home runs to Reds stars Ellie De La Cruz and Eugenio Suarez. So at least he's not giving them up to nobodies. But it's kind of my primary concern with Estevez in the 9th this coming year, especially with the fences coming in at the K. He's a fly ball guy. He's not missing as many bats as he used to. Usually that is a recipe for ball go far and over fence. And if you're going to close games, there's one thing you can't do. Give up some home runs. So, little concerned, but again, it's first outing of spring. He's probably just out there flinging fastballs, getting his arm right. So, not concerned about the results today, but it is in line with sort of my long-term concern for Estevez this season, the second year of that contract with the Royals. He led the American League in saves last year. It's not like a 5-alarm fire or anything, but just a touch concerned that the fences moving in might not do him a favor, might not be a favor to him. It is 32 days until the Royals open up their season against the Atlanta Braves in Atlanta. That means we look at number 32 on our countdown to Royals opening day. They have a number 32, Stephen Kolek. We've talked about him plenty. He's bidding for a rotation spot. Probably won't get one, and will start the year in AAA Omaha, but he should be a reliable minor league option should the Royals need some innings as the year goes. The first Royal to wear number 32 in club history was actually born right here in Topeka, Don O'Reilly. Otherwise, not really a notable player. Played just, I think, 27 big league games over 2 years. Donned the number 32 for the Royals in 1970. Northeast Kansas and KC Mo area lifer. Went to Kansas City Northeast High School. He was the first number 32. The best number 32 is Larry Gura. Wore that for the majority of his Royals career, including the championship in 1985. Willie Wilson wore the number as a rookie before he switched to number 6. That's a fun fact. Also, world champion Chris Young wore number 32 when he pitched for the Royals from 2015 to 2017. Coming up at the 4 o'clock hour, Darryn Peterson was available, and he was additive, and that was good enough for Kansas last night. Plus, Michael Swain of Phog.net. Coming up on the program.
forgot for a second I didn't have to do the whole rigmarole.
Right.
Saves a lot of time. No, it really does. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, let's get it. Now, number 2 of 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday afternoon. Thanks so much for being with us on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and live via streaming video on our Facebook page, WIBW News, and our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Like and subscribe, folks. Like and subscribe. Dan Lucero and Brendan Rosinski with you on this Tuesday afternoon. What's up, man?
What's up? Not much. How we doing?
Doing good.
KU won last night.
They sure did.
That's pretty cool.
Pretty convincingly. Did you think in your wildest dreams that the final, the portion after the under 4 timeout would just be playing out the string? And
thought you were going to ask if
hoop?
In my wildest dreams, Darryn Peterson would play 30 minutes against the top 5 team.
Fair.
No. I thought the path to winning this game, I did think KU could play a style in which outscoring Houston was a realistic outcome. I mean, this Houston team has some real worries offensively, but no, I figured any sort of win was going to be within 5 one way or the other. And KU played the end of the half really well. I thought the start of the game was very sloppy, and really on both ends to a degree, but they locked in, defense hunkered down, 11-0 run. The kill shot is what that's called. Evan Miyakawa came up with that. He does college basketball analytics, and it's a 10-0 run. That's what it essentially is. KU is near the very bottom of the Big 12 in 10-0 runs this season in terms of number generated. And they did it twice against Houston. I know this is a Houston team that's not necessarily severely injured, but banged up because they just played Iowa State and Arizona back-to-back. But damn, man, that is really impressive stuff for KU on the offensive end. So no, I did not think they'd be able to do that against that kind of team. Now, I do think Houston is a little bit overrated. I don't think that's literally, they are a top 5 team in the country. I think it's probably fairer to put them really in the KU range, like top 15, that 9 to 14 kind of range KU is bounced in between. I think that's more fair for Houston than top 5. But still, you did that at home against a team that at least nationally the outsiders believe is that good of a team, even after back-to-back losses, and you handled them. And I know you got to this earlier on in the show, and we'll get to it more here in a second. There were stretches when Darryn Peterson was the 5th best KU player on the floor. And he had his moments. He's clearly not 100%. Like, it's very obvious he is not going at full strength. And there were times, Bryson Tiller had a double-double. Flory Badunga's defense is unbelievable, truly unbelievable. Trey White was incredible offensively, and Melvin Council is right now the straw that stirs the drink. I mean, he is a marvel for this team. He really is. Every time he touches the ball, the whole crowd barks.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's unreal. And they got it done, and they didn't need DP to be great, but in moments when his number was called and they needed something from him, he was able to contribute it. Now, defensively, that's where you're going to see the most lapses because he's just not right. But overall, couldn't be happier with the win, truthfully.
It was an impressive performance. The second half in particular was really, really good. They cracked the code a little bit offensively. They kept getting to the line, and Houston just could not solve the Kansas defense. We have some more thoughts on that game this hour, in particular Darryn Peterson's performance, and we'll get to it all with Michael Swain of Phog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network for Jayhawk Weekly. That's coming up at the bottom of this hour. Also got What Is Wrong With You coming up. We'll wrap up the Royals spring training action from today. They are into the bottom of the 8th, still 4-3 Royals on top of the Reds. Again, if you missed it earlier, Jack Caglione and Josh Rojas with home runs for KC. Rojas, 2 for 2, a home run, a double, and 3 runs driven in. Cactus League MVP, Josh Rojas. Is he coming for that second base job? Should Jonathan India be nervous? Who knows? Who can say? It's much too early to say anything, actually. It's not even the first full week of spring. But that's what's going on in Goodyear, Arizona today as the Royals play at the Reds facility.
More like bad year. Ha!
Well, that might
Correct him.
You did. You got him good. Coming up also on the show, we want to hear your thoughts from the text line, 785-272-9429. That's 785-272-9429. You can also interact with us in the live chat on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk, name of the channel. Great way to interact with your fellow listeners and your hosts. And if you were in the live chat during the last commercial break, you've got a little bit of story time with Dan. So never know what you're going to get in there. It's always a good experience. We try to make it a good one anyway on the YouTube 580 Sports Talk. Also, our mics were hot for like a minute while we were at break. We didn't say anything bad. I shouldn't say our mics. I should say my mic. And I know I didn't say anything that's going to get me fired or canceled. So we're all good. But every now and again, that might happen. You never know when you're going to hear the mic go hot during a timeout. It'd be like that sometimes. Anyway, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Darryn Peterson played 30 minutes last night. I loved the headline. I think it was the original headline that CJ Moore wrote, and then I think The Athletic changed it both on their website and with their title card. But I believe the headline was initially written as Darryn Peterson has a normal one, which is a very, very funny way to put it. Darryn Peterson played 30 minutes last night. Would have probably been more if not for first half foul trouble. That's the reason. I mean, if you didn't see the game, you look at it, 30 minutes. Well, why only 30? You probably don't. Like at this point, you're probably thinking, wow, 30? That's amazing. But the reason it wasn't more than 30 is he did pick up a second foul with about 10 minutes to go in the first half and sat for more extended first half stretches than he might have otherwise. Finished with 14 points. He was 5 of 14 from the field, 2 of 7 from behind the arc. Houston makes it hard for you to score if you are a perimeter player. That's just a fact of the matter. That's how they guard you. Peterson had 4 rebounds. He had 1 assist. And you said earlier, like, you can tell he's not 100%. And the way that you can tell when Peterson isn't right, if he's playing through it, which he's not always done. Last night he did. And you could tell that he was playing through it because when Peterson has been at his best, and we haven't seen that a whole lot this year, but think about the first half of the BYU game. Think about maybe the first half against Carolina, first half against Oklahoma State, that scrimmage against Louisville, which is maybe the only time we've seen him that first half. We've seen him truly at 100% capacity this year, which, man. But anyway, when you've seen him at close to full capacity, the game is so easy for Darryn Peterson that it doesn't look like he's really exerting, that he just kind of glides, and he can glide around the defense or through the defense or to the basket, to his spot, or on defense, the way he stays in front of his man. It doesn't look like it's hard. He's so good at basketball that the game looks easy when he's right. You saw last night that it looked really hard for him. And I think for the balance of the time he was on the floor, some of that is Houston. Houston makes it hard. But it did not look like Peterson was physically capable of getting that first step that lets him get an angle and get by somebody and get to a lane where he can either create for himself or create for somebody else. Saw a little bit of that in the first half. He had that drive where he got fouled. I think he intentionally missed the shot off the backboard to try and tip in his own miss. Then he got fouled trying to tip in his own miss, bloodied his nose. The refs missed both of those calls somehow, but he ended up scoring. So, ball don't lie. There was the play where he got the running start down the lane. He hit that teardrop running floater from 12 feet, which is not an easy shot. There aren't a lot of guys who make that. But in the second half in particular, his role on the offense was to handle the ball, make decisions against Houston's perimeter pressure, and to find space where his teammates could maybe get him the ball to shoot from the perimeter. Peterson ended up making two pretty big threes in that second half, one of them late in the game out of the right corner that kind of felt like the dagger. What if that's all there is for Darryn Peterson? If he's going to stretch it and he's going to play through what he's clearly playing through, and the version of Darryn Peterson you get is not most talented player in America, most talented player Bill Self has ever coached, elite two-way game-changing playmaker. What if you get a guy who is like Melvin Council but a better three-point shooter, playing alongside the actual Melvin Council the rest of the way? I still think that's additive, with the bonus of Peterson having that, you call it gravity, right? When you've got a really good player that the defense has to be paying attention to at all times, Peterson's gravity opens things up for everyone else. You can't really leave him on the perimeter. You saw what happened when Houston did the couple of times that they chose to do that. It was a bad decision. Peterson's at 40.5% shooting from three, like shooting at a really, really high level. What if that's just kind of it? What if that's the impact that he makes? Not as a creator, not as a game record defensively, not as a three-level scorer, 30-point-a-night guy who can go get you 30, 35. What if he's just additive to the other pieces that he's going to be on the floor with? I think that might be enough for Kansas to get where they would like to go. Maybe it's not enough to win a national championship, but is that enough for a deep run in the tournament? I think it could be. I think there are, now the caveats are obviously like Trey White needs to continue to shoot the ball well. Council continues to need to be the Energizer Bunny and just never need any time off the floor. Badunga needs to be in a matchup where he does not have to spend 35 minutes guarding somebody who's bigger than he is. But you catch those matchups, and Trey White does his thing, Melvin Council does his thing, and Peterson is additive to that with the skills that he has. I still think that unlocks a lot for Kansas.
I think it does. My big worry, though, is, and you alluded to it there, is that you need everybody else to be close to their A game. And that's the downside of having a roster that is really tough and fits together, but is not the most supremely talented. And you know the line, the Bill Self line, and we've mentioned it a million times on this show over the years, is that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? And we've seen it. And, not to say that Arizona didn't work hard a couple big Mondays ago, but KU outworked them. And in the second half, Arizona could not buy a shot around the rim. And KU found a way to make that work. It's one of the seminal KU wins since 2022, maybe the seminal KU win since 2022. They can do it, but you might not need 23 points from Trey White, but you probably need 15 plus. You need Flory to be that good defensively, which at this point you probably trust that he can be. You need Melvin Council to be relatively efficient, and his game is not built on being a hyper-efficient scorer. He doesn't need to be, but you also can't probably afford a game or many games where he goes 6 for 25 or whatever he was against Arizona a couple weeks ago. And he was good last night. I mean, no, get me wrong. That's the issue, because Peterson at his best, or as close to his best as you can get, is going to cover up for some of those things. If Trey White goes through a shooting slump, Darryn Peterson can cover up for that because he's got that kind of offensive talent. If you're not getting a whole lot from the bench, the only guy last night who I thought was not giving you a ton, who was a real part of the rotation, I didn't think Marco really did anything for you last night. But even McDowell hit a couple shots. And
yeah, he did.
Look, Jamari McDowell is, unlike Darryn Peterson, who he subs in for when DP can't go, Jamari McDowell is not going to end up on the Mount Rushmore of most talented, just pure, raw, talented basketball players in the history of the program, or at least in the Bill Self era. But he tries. There's effort there. He's always going to give you hustle. He can shoot the ball a little bit. He draws fouls because he gets ragdolled every time he's touched. Like, everybody gave you something really except Marco. But you need those bench guys to be, frankly, pretty good if you're not getting that from, and I thought Jamari was pretty good last night for what you asked of him.
I don't know about good. I think they can't take anything off the table.
Yeah,
it's
you
the old
can't.
Phil Bill Simmons table test. Are you bringing something to the table, or if at a bare minimum, are you not taking anything off of the table?
Let's put it this way. It is much harder to afford a down game, even just within the silos of each player's individual role. Like, okay, Council, you don't need him to be especially efficient, but you need him to run in transition, move the ball well, draw some fouls. If he has a bad game like that, okay, well, suddenly you're in a hole. Trey White, score the ball, play good defense. Wow, no duh. But, like, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they don't need 23 from him, but when he catches the ball in the corner, he needs to make that shot.
Exactly.
And he did last night.
And if DP is not going to be great, then you really need him to do that. Your bench guys, they have to. Now, Marco's got to give you something. Jamari's got to he's got to make a couple of threes. Like, it's all doable. To your point, it is all absolutely doable. I think the biggest problem is you just have a smaller margin for error. Because if Peterson is, at 80% of what he could be and everyone else is firing, that team can beat Arizona. I mean, they beat him without DP, but I wouldn't like to try that again. You can beat Arizona. That team can beat Michigan. If you don't have DP, if he's closer to 60, 65%, you need everyone to be really good at the top of what they are asked to do. Otherwise, you probably cannot beat those teams. Could you make a run? Sure, you could. You also probably would be a dog, depending on who you're matched up against in the regional final. And that's fine. KU can do that. We saw a KU team less talented on paper as an underdog in a regional final, even as a higher seed, beat Duke in 2018. You and I were there. We saw that in person. It's doable. I'm just saying that your margin for error is much smaller when you don't have that from Peterson. And that's the big, I wouldn't even say worry because it's all hypothetical, but that would be the concern in that situation for me anyway.
Because Peterson's so talented that he's a guy who can just deflate your margin of error entirely because he's that good.
Right.
He's the one guy who, okay, maybe we have a bad matchup. Maybe everybody else is playing poorly, but here's a guy who might be the best prospect in the country, and he can go get his, he can go create, he can flip a game on his own. And you look at the teams who are at the top of college basketball this year, they've got a guy who can do that, who can put the game on a string. A couple of those teams have multiple guys who can do that. Like Iowa State, like Lipsy can do it in a whole bunch of different ways. Momcilovic can do it with scoring. Duke's got Boozer, obviously. Arizona's got a bunch of guys who can do it. Illinois's got Keaton Wagler. Like when you think about the real contenders, the top tier teams, Michigan State's got the Fears kid. If he can stay on the floor, quick kicking people in the nuts, he's one of those. Nebraska's got Rink Mass to his best. Kansas doesn't really have. I mean, Flory's a tremendous defensive player and can control a game defensively and dominate a game defensively. But that doesn't necessarily make him, even though I think he's the most valuable Jayhawk, he's not a guy in a game where you think, we're not in a great matchup here. We're not in a great spot. We're not playing well, but Flory's going to turn the game on its ear by himself. Like that, Peterson's supposed to be that guy for Kansas. And I think you have to acknowledge this point that level of play may just not be something he can get to this year. So if the level of play he does get to is maybe a bit of microwave scoring, like last night he was 5 of 14, but we know he's capable of hitting more shots than that. If he's a guy who gives you, he's capable of giving you 20, he's going to knock down those threes at a 40% clip. He's going to get to the free throw line. He's not maybe going to be that elite creator. He's not going to be that terrific defender who gets out in transition and runs the floor. Other guys are going to need to bring that element, but the elements that Peterson can bring, even at something less than 100%, I think are still additive to everything that Council and Badunga and Tiller and White and Jackson can also bring. And it gives them that chance, I think, to still get to that. Would you say it's fair to say this is a second weekend? This is a team that second weekend of the NCAA tournament should be the expectation. And if you get to a regional final, like they're 15th in the Ken Pom right now, right? Like that's about where they rank in the AP. They're projected to be a 3 seed. That's generally that's the baseline expectation. Then get to the second weekend, get to a regional final. That's about what this team's. I don't want to put a ceiling on it because we could see more from Peterson. He could get healthier as this thing goes along, but would you call that a reasonable outcome for this year? You get if this is an Elite Eight team, you'd feel like, yeah, this team, given the limitations to Peterson, maybe maxed out a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Ken Pom numbers right around where they are in the AP poll. Preseason AP poll, KU was 19th. And that changes over the course. I mean, Iowa State was 16th, Illinois was 17th, and that's like where those teams are. I think all three of those teams I just mentioned are all better than their preseason expectations. But if you're talking about where do you think KU is, I mean, are they right now? Just yes, no. Are they a top 15 team in the country? Kansas? I think the answer is yes, handily.
Yeah.
So I think like Elite Eight sounds pretty good for a top 15 team in the country. And Final Four, hey, if you're saying 15 teams are in the running for that, you make it there. That's an overwhelming success. Even if you're one of the last 8 out of the top 15, odds are several of those teams are not going to get there. We've never gone 1 through 4 in every region getting all the way in. So, yeah, I think that would be successful in a vacuum. I mean, for KU, it's always disappointing if you don't make it to the final weekend, obviously. But, yeah, I think that would be that's a good run. I think, hey, we met. If you can get somewhere and say we maxed out what we had available to us, like the last 2 years, you could not say that. You absolutely could not.
No.
And you couldn't really in that 23 season either, but that one was different. And Self's not coaching in Des Moines, and DeJuan Harris gets hurt in the round of 32. Like that one was that was different. The last 2 years, I mean, do you think that KU played to its potential? No. Like this team plays better than its talent level. It absolutely, especially outside of number 22. The hope here is that you get to the postseason, and everyone always talks about it, and it's hard to know how overrated it is, but those media timeouts are so long.
They are.
So long. To the point where coaches are often just like milling around during the break. Like, okay, you guys can really just handle this yourself. I'm going to go like grab some popcorn and get back to the bench. Like they take forever. You get more rest. Maybe you can get more out of Peterson. And I do think we've had moments this year, first half against BYU, like, oh yeah, that's why he's going first,
right?
And why he's going second.
He showed up in kill everybody mode that night. And that's like the tantalizing taste of what it can be. And if it can be that for 6 games in March, those could be pretty special.
And look, man, like, okay, I understand they don't know how to play with him at the end of games, and that's a bad thing. I understand that argument. By the same token, okay, round of 64. You're gonna get who? I don't know, Ivy League champion, someone of that caliber. Like, is anyone in the Summit League really good this year? Like, maybe they squeak to a 14. That's the kind of team you're going to play. You don't need a lot from Darryn Peterson. Maybe you can steal some extra time. Maybe he doesn't have to play a ton, and he can give you a full game in the round of 32 when the second weekend is on the line. If you get to a do-or-die game like, hey, we think Wisconsin is a brutal matchup. We think Illinois is a bad matchup for us. Darryn, you got to play 20 minutes in the first half, and we're gonna burn it up.
Empty the clip.
We're gonna empty the clip, and everybody else, we're gonna get up by 10 at the half and hold on to your butts, and that's what we're gonna do. I understand the thinking that you want everybody to know how you have to play at the end of a game. By the same token, I'd almost rather say, you know what? If we know we've got Darryn at 85% for 20 minutes and not a second more, let's use it. Let's get ahead and trust in the guys who have had to close more often. You guys, the ones who are closing this.
Because that's kind of what they did against BYU, basically.
And that's kind of where I think the best strategy might be. I'm trying to maximize what I've got from him.
We'll take a time out here at 580 Sports Talk. More KU with Michael Swain of Phog.net coming up in a bit. What is wrong with you is next on the program. So what is wrong with you time on 580 Sports Talk? 2 new stories today competing to take down our current champion, the Rotisserie Rumble, an elementary school teacher who used a racial slur and punched a woman in the face in line for a rotisserie chicken at Sam's Club.
Dog, I'm going to tell you a real quick tip here. We went to Sam's on Sunday.
Uh-huh.
Usually, I don't like going on the weekend. We went, this is a joke. I would like to make this very clear. This is a joke. We went during what I called atheist hour at Sam's when everyone's at church.
Sure.
An entire collection of rotisserie chickens untouched. Right there. It was, I've never seen it before in my life. It was incredible. We walked away with
yes.
Usually you have to wait 20 minutes to get one.
Yeah, well, this woman didn't like waiting and didn't like that the other woman was going to get one for an elderly woman who couldn't stand in line. So she called her the N-word and punched her in the face. Anyhow, our 2 new stories today. I will go first. We go to another teacher behaving badly. New London, Wisconsin, where a teacher from Lincoln Elementary School is accused of using Coke in the bathroom of her classroom. You've never been into an elementary...
Oh, maybe she was thirsty.
No, not that kind.
Uh-oh.
If you've been to an elementary school, which my wife is an elementary school teacher, so I have been, each classroom has its own bathroom. Apparently, that's where she was hitting the slopes.
Wait, what? Each classroom has their own bathroom?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, maybe not at every school, but yeah.
Dang, my elementary school had one per floor.
58-year-old Lori Lobenstein of Appleton is facing a charge of possession of cocaine with a modifier of possession of a controlled substance on or near certain places. Police say somebody made an anonymous tip about her. They told the school resource officer they'd noticed changes in her behavior, had seen her frequently going into the bathroom with her purse, and had found bloody tissues and white powder in the bathroom. The tipster said they told the school principal about their concerns, but felt they weren't taken seriously. The school resource officer visited Lobenstein's classroom the next day, noticed she looked anxious and nervous. Yeah, it'll do that. He checked the bathroom and found a small amount of white powder on a counter, which he took back to the police station. It was tested, and it was cocaine. The school resource officer returned on Thursday, February 12th, with a police dog, and a search revealed that Lobenstein had cocaine in her purse and coat pocket. She was interviewed at the police department, told investigators she started using coke in August. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and Ron Washington only ever did it that one time before he tested positive. Didn't know the weights or amounts and just gave someone money for an unknown amount. She also admitted to using cocaine that day before school started, and that she'd used it after school as well as in the classroom and teacher's lounge bathrooms. But it's okay. She told police she always cleans up after herself and would never put her students in danger.
Hey, that's a good lesson to teach. Wow.
I cannot believe. Look, wow. I am keenly aware of how hard a job, how taxing a job being an elementary school teacher can be, but full on hitting the slopes in the classroom bathroom is insane.
Yeah, it's nuts.
That is nasty work. What is your story? Let's go quickly.
All right, my story is going to take us to a grocery store in California where 49-year-old Jonathan Maurer is accused and is facing charges of 8 counts of attempted murder because he tried to run over a youth baseball team running a fundraiser.
Oh, my God.
Yep. The Tahoe Titans were trying to raise money. Think Girl Scouts. Your local football team sells those little gold cards or whatever. Yeah, this team was just trying to sell something to make a little money for, travel and, what they do in small towns. They had raised $2,000 by 2 p.m. That's awesome. But then Mr. Maurer tried to run them over with his truck. Don't know why. He put a cigarette out on one of their signs, mumbled something under his breath. The parents thought, okay, whatever. He walks to his truck and then tried to run them over.
Doesn't seem like a well person. Something a well person would do.
No, he hit multiple people. In total, 7 between parents and children were injured.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Terrible.
8 counts of attempted murder.
A good...
no one dead, though.
Yes, very important. Awful story. I cannot, in good conscience, vote for it.
No.
We're going to go with the teacher doing blow in the bathroom. But does that beat getting in a fight over rotisserie chickens at Sam's Club?
I'm going to say yes. Not only because I love a rotisserie chicken, but look, this person's just a psycho racist. This other woman, there are children. They're doing finger painting out in the classroom, right. And you're hitting the slopes.
You're teaching them phonics and then riding the white horse.
No, I'm going to go with that one. I think it's the new winner.
I think so, too. That ain't chalkboard dust. That's our winner on What Is Wrong With You. Michael Swain of Phog.net joins us next. I'm out of here for high school hoops. Join me at 5:45, Washburn Rural and Topeka High on the 580 Preps Tuesday Night Hoops doubleheader. Brendan's got you the rest of the way on 580 Sports Talk. What a scene it was in Lawrence, Kansas last night when the Kansas Jayhawks knocked off the 5th-ranked Houston Cougars. And the Jayhawks now with back-to-back Big Monday wins, 41-0 for Bill Self at home on Big Monday. It's absolutely ridiculous. To break this one down, we now welcome in our good friend Michael Swain of Phog.net. He joins us every single week at this time for Jayhawk Weekly on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. You can go follow his phenomenal work covering KU over at Phog.net. Michael, I'll ask you what Dan asked me at the start of the hour. In your wildest dreams, would you have imagined an outcome last night which saw KU comfortably and easily ahead in the final few minutes against that Houston team?
Yes, because of the circumstances, right? If this was a Saturday game or a Tuesday game or a Wednesday game, maybe not. But just look at your schedule. I mean, it's ridiculous. And Kelvin Sampson kind of gave a middle finger to Brett Veach in the postgame press conference yesterday, kind of talk about the schedule they've played. I think if we're talking about like where I saw the wheel of possibilities ending up, I would have had probably comfortable KU win as a very close second behind a KU win and a close one being first. So I can't say I was too surprised. You know, Houston, like you go and play Arizona and that physical style on a Saturday, they need to go travel to Allen Fieldhouse. And, you know, it's just one of those where it's kind of a schedule loss. So I think it was not terribly surprising, but if you would have told me 4 minutes into the game, that's the way it was going to go, I probably would have been a little bit more surprised.
One quick aside to your point about Kelvin Sampson, Michael. If you don't like it, you can go back to the American. I'm sure they would love to have you play in East Carolina and Wichita State, but that's neither here nor there. Who was the best player for KU last night?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think you could go a lot of different places. I think Melvin Council was, because I think the way that he took over in the second half is really what turned the game around. Like his defensive rebounding, his ability to push the pace from there and get KU in positions where Houston was not able to get their defense set, I think was really, really important. And you can even go back to the end of the first half, right, and what he does in the final few minutes, kind of sparking the 11-0 run. But I think he was KU's best player last night. I think we could easily talk about Trey White. We could talk about Floyd Badunga and the work that he did, while not necessarily putting up great, counting numbers offensively. Like his impact was really felt. But man, it's just one of those games where watching it in the second half specifically, you're like, Melvin Council has full control of this game. And he was the best player on the floor. Maybe not the most talented player on the floor, but he was the best guy on the floor last night.
Talking to Michael Swain of Phog.net and 24/7 Sports, joining us for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Tuesday at this time. Go find Michael's phenomenal work covering the Jayhawks. Again, that's at Phog.net and 24/7 Sports. Michael, you do a great job being very analytical and diving deep into things, which makes it very fitting. I'm going to ask you a completely vibes-based question here to follow. Do you have a point of reference for the kind of vibe and feeling around this program? And look, nothing is perfect right now. That loss to Cincinnati, yuck. I can tell you some very explicit text messages I got from people after that game against Cincy and during it over the weekend. But like, you've got fans who are sticking around in their seats for the entirety of post-game TV interviews for Bill Self. You've got students who literally bark every single time Melvin Council touches the ball. Camping numbers for students have looked better than they have in several years. Like, do you have a point of reference for recent memory, the last time things felt like this enjoyable around the program?
Oh boy, bringing up camping on a day like today. Look at you.
Don't go check Twitter if you want to hear good news about the camping situation.
Yeah. Oh man, that's something. So look, I think it's been a while, and I was texting with someone this morning about it. Like, in terms of a team that top to bottom had so many fan favorite characters for different reasons, it feels a little 2018 to me. Just, you look at the way that the team enjoys being around each other, the way that the fans interact with the players understanding what it means to play at Kansas. Like, I just think back to that 2020 team and, you know, and the way Devontae and Svi and Malik and even Doak to some degree, the way they all interacted with the fans and the way the vibe was at that point in time, you know, that's what I think back to. But it has been a while, and I think that's part of the reason why the vibes are so good is because of how bad last year was in particular, but also just the last couple years. You know, I mean, when was the last time Kansas had a drama-free season? Genuinely. You know, last year we're getting around the time of the Utah trip last year, right, when all that stuff happened. You know, you go back the year before, Kevin McCullough's injury loomed over things. And obviously him not playing very well at the end of the season and not being available, like, that impacted KU and the vibes. And then you go the year before that, and there's Bill Self's health scare. And it's just like there have been so many waves of things that have been negative that this year's team, being one that has so many positive figures, I think has brought out just this overall collective, I think, sigh of relief. And shoot, I think Bill Self feels it too. You know, I think he's really enjoying coaching this team. And I just think overall, kind of all those factors coming together where it's been, by Kansas standards, a rough couple years since the title. And now having a team that kind of makes KU fans feel like it's kind of in the streak era, again, I think is what has led to the vibes being so positive around the program.
Who is the next closest, most popular player that you can remember for KU after Melvin Council? Because you're right, like, he's not the best player on this team. You could argue he's not a top 2 guy on the team with how well Flory is playing as of late, and obviously Darryn Peterson, supremely talented. The only corollary I can think of is Devontae Graham. Like, Devontae in his senior year, and even before that dude was the president of Lawrence, Kansas, and Allen Fieldhouse. I mean, it was unbelievable. I know you were obviously on campus at that time too. Can you think of another player who had this level of popularity? Because it's kind of incredible for a quote, you know, a guy who came into the year with little fanfare to have him be this kind of true superstar at this point.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I think you can go on different levels to this, right? I think Grady Dick had plenty of fanfare, but that was more of like a meme because of his last name and he was good. And then, like, you know, Ochai and Jalen Wilson maybe a little bit, but that was more, hey, these are Kansas guys who have been in the program for so long. I think you're probably right with Devontae in 2018, because I don't think you got that from Devon or Doak in 2020. So it's been a while since there's been this strong of a fan favorite when it comes down to their level of play, but also just their personality and the way that they connect with people. Like, I think it's been just a long time generally since there's been, I think, this type of connection. I think the way you describe with Devontae is so accurate. He was the president, with his just the way he interacted with fans and the love that was felt there mutually. So I think it's a good callback by you.
Talking to Michael Swain of Phog.net, joining us for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. All right, I went as long as I possibly could without asking about Darryn Peterson, but I've succumbed to the external pressure at this point. If DP is playing like that, like he did last night, and you'd hope for a little bit more efficiency shooting the ball, sure. But if he is that caliber of player, and you're getting the other kinds of contributions that you saw, Trey White is scoring and making shots, Council's doing his thing, Flo is playing that kind of defense. Does this team still have a similar ceiling to what it would if DP was at his very best, maybe covering up some of the blemishes elsewhere?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, it's not going to be at the same level, but it's still a team that you could see going on a run in the NCAA tournament. The question is just going to be consistency, because the way Darren's playing right now is just more as an elite off-ball shot maker. That's really what he is, and that's what the season has turned him out to be. And it's funny, I was doing some stuff with CBS last week, and someone I was on with made the point that, like, in high school, Darryn was not this elite of a shot maker, right? He was more of an all-around player, point guard, and the way that he has just knocked down jump shots this year has been remarkable. And having that type of player as your two guard is really important, especially when you've got someone you can trust with the ball like Melvin Council. So I look at this role for Darryn right now. Is it what people envisioned at the start of the year? No. Is it what people envisioned 2 months ago? No. But it's just kind of where the season has led you. And I think the thing now is you got to have Darryn buy into what this kind of role is going to be, where, hey, man, like, you're going to get your shots. Like, let's not make any bones about it. Like, you're going to get your shots up, dude. You just got to play within the offense and cut and move. And I think that was some of the encouraging stuff I think you've seen, whether it be a little bit against Oklahoma State or, yesterday against Houston, is just the way that he's moving without the ball is so intelligent, and he is getting open. And even when he does have the ball in his hands, like, he can get his own shot off. It's just about preserving him and his legs and making sure that when the second half comes, you can get those big moments like he had against Texas Tech, and you're not there watching him kind of just standing in the corner being stiff. So I think that's kind of a balancing act. But I think for KU and this team, like, it's still a group that, if it plays with intensity and an energy to the way that they're going about their business, not like Cincinnati on Saturday, but more like last night, it's still a team I think that can go on a run in the NCAA tournament. Is that Final Four? Is that Elite Eight? I don't know. I don't necessarily want to put a specific game on that, but I think KU can make the second weekend. And once you do that, Bill Self's record in the Sweet 16 speaks for itself. And then all of a sudden you're talking about Elite Eight and anything can happen. So it's one of those where I would still be pretty bullish on this KU team. They've just got to have the right approach and the right mindset every night.
Saturday, going to the McHale Center, taking on Arizona. Would have loved for this to have been a one-and-done series this year, but I can understand why the Big 12 wanted 2 Kansas versus Arizona games. It's going to be tough. It's going to be at their place. Not going to have the magic of Allen Fieldhouse behind you, and we know how good that crowd was last time, a couple weeks ago. What is KU going to have to do especially well to pull off the upset on the road this weekend?
Yeah, I think it comes back to some of the stuff they did pretty well in the first game, which is really force Arizona to take mid-range jumpers. They're a team that doesn't shoot a lot of threes. They want to get to the rim, and KU did a really good job in the second half of that first game and sealing off the paint and forcing Arizona into inefficient shots. And then, look, offensively for KU, it's going to come down to movement. I think this is a team that when they look at their best, Melvin can push the pace, yes, but it's not just everyone stands around and watches Darryn, or everyone stands around and watches Flory, or stands around and watches Melvin, right? You got to have all the ball and body movement that then helps the other guys get open. So I just think this is going to be another really physical test for KU, and they're going to need some shot makers. At home, they've had guys like Jamar McDowell step up. Marco Jackson has stepped up with some big moments. They need guys to step up and make jump shots, because Arizona does a great job of protecting the paint. They're going to make it really hard on someone like Flory to get going because the way that they guard and just how good their center is. And I just think this is another game where KU's going to need kind of one of those 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 performances to go and win. Because you're right, like KU is not going to have Allen Fieldhouse, and the building has provided so much magic for KU this year. Like, there's a good chance they're going to be a 9 or 10 point underdog going into this game. So it's going to be tough, but KU can win. They've just got to put together, I think, a really collective performance that starts with really protecting the paint on defense, and then just straight up make or miss league, right? They got to go out and make some jump shots in that game.
All right, Mike, we've got about 30 seconds here. Right now, the bracketologists, they like KU as about a 3 seed. They win this weekend. I would imagine a 2 is still in play. The 2 closest first weekend sites this year, St. Louis and Oklahoma City. Which one would you rather travel to if you got the choice?
You know, I don't hate Oklahoma City. You know, Bricktown's not bad. I'll just avoid St. Louis. I'm good with not going to St. Louis. Let's pick Oklahoma City.
What a fantastic answer. What a way to go out. Michael Swain joins us every Tuesday at this time for Jayhawk Weekly, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. If you're not a VIP over at Phog.net and 24/7 Sports, you're missing out on phenomenal insight into what's going on with KU before you hear it anywhere else. Michael, we appreciate the time, man. Enjoy Saturday's game.
Sounds good. Talk to you guys next week.
That is the great Michael Swain joining us for Jayhawk Weekly. We have to get to a quick timeout. We'll come back, chat Royals real quick to end up the hour. Big 5 o'clock hour coming your way on 580 Sports Talk. Rounding out this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, Brendan Dworzinski here with you in the booth. One quick Royals note before we go. Final score, who cares at spring training? Jack Caglione, 460-foot home run today for the boys in blue. Is the MVP season on? Is Cags back? Is the Royals offense going to be elite? All of these things we're not going to know for several months, but very cool to see him blasting one. And look, I know that last year was something of a disappointment just in terms of production. There was so much hype, so much buildup. And I tried to say, but we can't put too many eggs in the Cags basket because there's too many variables, too many things to go wrong. He's still young, et cetera, et cetera. If he can come out and be your third best hitter, your fourth best hitter, this offense can take a major step forward. Really cool to see him have a nice start to the spring. Coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, we've got Random Question Tuesday with your questions. We've got headlines and more coming up after the news on 580 Sports Talk. go. It is the final hour of 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Welcome back to the program. Brendan Rosinski joining you in the box for the finale of today's program. However long today's program may be, at some point we are going to pass things off to Dan Lucero and the coach, Larry Latimer, because we've got 580 Preps Tuesday night hoops. Centennial League action, Washburn Rural versus Topeka High, girls, boys doubleheader. That was going to be fun. I'm excited for it. Tonight, two teams that two teams boys, two teams girls that both could really use a win to build a little momentum going into the postseason. Great storylines for all these programs. Can't wait for the action tonight. Again, that is coming up. We will pass you off as soon as they are ready to go. When JV is wrapped up, we're ready for pregame. We're assuming sometime around 5:45. So until then, stay here, hang out with me, and hang out with us today on 580 Sports Talk. In this final hour of the show, we've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll get to those coming up here in just a few moments. Also, we're going to play a little Random Question Tuesday today. A Tuesday staple, has been for many, many years. Now, as you may have noticed, no one else is here. It is just me, as I mentioned. If you're watching on the YouTube, you will see that there is no one else in the building as well. So we are going to do Random Question Tuesday like we often do our Ask Me Anythings. You are going to provide the random questions. I will answer them for you. That's how we're going to play it right here. That's how it goes sometimes. So if you've got a random question for me, it can be about anything. Chiefs, Royals, KU, K-State, football, basketball. You want to talk about food. You want to talk about fatherhood stuff. You want to talk some Pokemon? Let's do it. Bring me your questions. Bring me your nerd stuff. Let's talk about it. Bring it to us here for Random Question Tuesday. We'll get to that after headlines. We'll, of course, have a final word as well, leading you into the action coming up tonight between Topeka High and Washburn Rural. All right, let's get to it. Our 580 Sports Talk headlines. By the way, I should inform you the way to reach out to us. Text line 785-272-9429. Also, you can hit us up on YouTube. If you have not already found the YouTube channel, well, you are certainly missing out. Head over to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk, like, subscribe, check out the video stream of the show today. We would love to have you as a part of the program here on 580 Sports Talk. All right, let's get into it. Now we are going to get to today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. First one for us today, some cool news for a certain stellar Kansas City Royal, and that is Bobby Witt Jr. He has been named the winner of the 2025, so this past year, Lou Gehrig Award, which is given annually to the player who best exemplifies the giving character of Hall of Famer Lou Gehrig. Bobby is the third Royal to ever win the award, behind George Brett and, of course, Salvador Perez. Really cool for Bobby Witt Jr. You know, it's always, as fans, I think sometimes, especially for our own teams, we can overrate the positive character aspects of some things. And like, you know, it's good to have good people, but occasionally it's like, oh, yeah, well, our guys are the best. Our guys are great, all of those things. But there really is something that makes it fun and special to root for someone when they are actually truly good people. And everything we've ever heard really about the entirety of this current Royals team, you got good dudes. Vinny Pasquantino is a good dude. Some of the young guys, good dudes. The pitching staff, who we all, I think, are going to love even more coming up this year, all good dudes. And to have someone be your leader, your best player, your superstar, your face of the franchise, who is doing good in the community, who is good with the fans. He's a great ambassador for the game and for your team and your city. That's a really special thing. And again, in the long run, what does this mean for baseball? Well, nothing. It doesn't mean anything for that. But it makes it more fun, in my opinion, to root for guys who you would root for in life anyway. And I think Bobby Witt Jr. is that kind of guy. Because, I mean, look, we've all had teams before where the players are unsavory. They're not as fun to root for off the field. Like, I'm glad you're good at the plate, or you're good at throwing the ball, or you're a great receiver, or whatever it might be. But I don't really want to think about anything beyond that. To have a guy as special as a talent as Bobby Witt is, and as special of a person as he is, really cool. So I did want to shout that out today for Bobby Witt Jr., because not every team gets to have guys like that. Not every good team, contending team with playoff hopes and championship aspirations gets to have guys like that. So Kansas City Royals fans, you're very lucky that your superstar, hopefully the face of this franchise for a generation to come, is that kind of dude. Pretty cool stuff for the Kansas City Royals. Let's also stay local here and get to some women's basketball news. It was announced earlier today that both KU and K-State are going to play in the inaugural edition of the Invitational. Yes, that is what it is being called. Being hosted in 2026 and 2027 up at the Sanford Pentagon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Programs from including Nebraska, Minnesota, KU, and K-State have all agreed to play a doubleheader at the Sanford Pentagon coming up in November of the next two college basketball seasons. Coming up on November 14th this year, Nebraska will play KU. Well, that's fun, former Big 12 rivals. Meanwhile, Minnesota will square off with K-State. Then they will reverse things the following year. K-State will play Nebraska, also fun. Minnesota versus KU coming up in 2027. I feel like they could have come up with a better name for this than just the Invitational, to be completely honest with you. That's a really neat venue up there at the Sanford Pentagon. I've never been inside, but I like watching games there. They host the Northern Sun. That's one of the conferences in Washburn's region. More on Washburn here in a little bit. But it's a cool venue. They've hosted some really big-time non-conference men's D1 games before. I think it was 2 years ago, Baylor and Auburn played there for some reason. It was like a 9 o'clock local time tip-off, and they played in South Dakota, even though they were teams from Texas and Alabama. It's a cool place to watch a game, really neat venue. So some cool stuff for KU and K-State that they'll both be involved. So if you want to go make a trip, pretty good time to go up there. I will say this. I feel like I often make comments about places I've been or places I've really liked that a lot of people would go, really? Like, why? My wife and I both independently of each other in recent weeks said, man, I can't wait to go back to Salt Lake City, which no one ever says. No one. But as a person who doesn't drink, likes to go hiking, and enjoys eating pastrami on my cheeseburgers, yes, that's a thing. Shout out Crown Burger. I really enjoyed Salt Lake City. I have always enjoyed my time in South Dakota. I've been twice. I've been to Brookings for a Washburn women's game a couple of years ago. They took on South Dakota State. I was there for the Division II NCAA men's tournament back in 2021 when they played against the teams at Northern State University up in Aberdeen. Incredibly nice people. Of all the states I've been to, and I've been to 38 of them now, 37 of them, I think, in my lifetime. I think the nicest people I've ever met have been in South Dakota. That's a complete aside from the actual news story here for KU and K-State women's hoops, but that's where we are. K-State women, tough one last night, losing against Baylor. What was the final score of that one? Double check on that. 80-54, the final score. K-State's women now 15-15 overall on the season. It's going to take a win in the Big 12 championship tournament to make it to the big dance this year for the K-State women. Rebuilding year. What was it? One player, I think only Taryn Sides returns from last year. I know we've been over that before on the program, but obviously a big change there. And at last glance, I believe KU, under Coach Schneider, they are right now sitting as one of the first four out in Charlie Krem, the women's basketball bracketologist over at ESPN. They are the third team out in his ranking right now. In fact, 3 of the first 4 teams out, seeds 69 through 72 in his projection, all Big 12 teams. That's bizarre. Arizona State, Utah, and Kansas would be the first 3 teams to miss the field, according to this particular bracketology. And then BYU would be in the next 4 out as well. So, yeah, Big 12 women's hoops, maybe not quite as dominant as Big 12 men's hoops. SEC, pretty darn good in women's basketball as well. But, yeah, a lot of depth this year. K-State going to have to win the tournament coming up here in just a couple of weeks. Really just 1 week away, I believe. We're getting darn close to the start of the women's tournament. All right, continuing on with today's 580 Sports Talk headlines here on the show. And again, while we have time and while I have a moment, a reminder, we're taking your questions next segment for Random Question Tuesday. Hit me up, whatever you want to talk about. Anything's on the table. Keep it like at least PG-13, though, please. Let us know for Random Question Tuesday, either on the text line or in the YouTube chat. All right, interlude over. Let's continue on with today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Got plenty of NFL news and notes to bring to you today from the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. We heard from Brett Veach a little bit earlier on in the show today. Dan played some of the greatest hits from his press conference, talking about being prepared for Travis Kelce to retire. For what it's worth, and I'm sure Dan got to this, a comment like that does not scream to me, we know he is retiring, but you have to prepare for it, because you can't prepare for, oh, well, we expect him to be back, and then he's not, and suddenly you have an even bigger hole at tight end than you already do. So you have to prepare for those things, but I don't think we got anything especially revolutionary. He did make a comment Brett Veach did about adding to the running game and how much an addition to and a playmaker in the running game could help take some pressure off Patrick Mahomes. I think you could say the same thing about everything else on the offense. I'm actually pretty bullish on the offensive line going into next year, to be honest with you. I think a tackle pairing of Simmons and Moore, guards of Suamataia and Smith, and then, of course, Humphrey at center. I actually think that's a fairly above average offensive line all told. So I've got no major worries right there, at least with everybody healthy. But they need at least one and probably two or more new running backs next year. I think they need not a complete overhaul of the wide receiver room, but I think there's some major need in the wide receiver room, probably for multiple players, a free agent and a draft pick, 2 picks, whatever. And I think you need more help at tight end because you don't know if Jared Wiley is an NFL player. Noah Gray is what he is, and that's not really a regular starter. Travis Kelce, even if he comes back, he's not going to be the guy who earned that spot in the Hall of Fame. He's going to be, late 30s tight end who's played 1 million snaps, Travis Kelce. But running back was something Brett Veach specifically pointed to. And the name that everyone has brought up, from the NFL podcast Bourgeoisie, who I like to listen to a lot of, to regular Joe Schmo fans, certainly people who either support Iowa State or are from Wichita, Kansas, they all bring up Breece Hall. Doesn't sound like Breece Hall is going to hit the market. According to Daryl Mogi, the GM of the New York Jets, they plan to put the franchise tag on Breece Hall if they do not get a long-term deal done before the franchise tag deadline. That takes a big name off the board at running back. We'll do free agency Friday coming up this week. Maybe we'll get into running backs this week with this news now out there. This is a bad draft for running backs. Everyone who you listen to, who talks about the draft, who follows it for a living, will tell you it is a bad draft for running backs. It's one of those things that's cyclical. Last year, at least on paper, a really good year for running backs. This year, not so much. You don't have an Ashton Genty. You don't have even an Amarian Hampton. You don't have an RJ Harvey. I don't think you have a Devin Neal, because I think Devin Neal should have gone in the top 4 rounds, not round 6, but that's neither here nor there. So really, I think free agent and then day 3 pick is the way to go here if you're the Chiefs to rebuild that running back room. I can't imagine Isaiah Pacheco comes back. Not a great free agency class overall, but, it's okay. It's not terrible, but Breece Hall was going to be the belle of the ball in that regard. With him not out there, it's going to make things a little bit more difficult. And it makes a little bit more sense why they would keep him and try to keep him long-term after not trading him at the deadline, because there was so much chat about, well, if you're not going to extend him, which at first it didn't sound like they were going to do, then why would you not trade him and get some picks back? That doesn't make any sense, especially if the Chiefs are offering a 4th. Why would you haggle over a 3rd if you didn't plan to keep him? Well, as it appears now, they do plan, at least for 1 more year, to keep Breece Hall with the New York Jets. So in all likelihood, maybe don't mark it off with Sharpie yet on your free agency checklist. Maybe don't cross them off with a permanent marker. But I think at least in pencil, maybe erasable pen, you can cross off Breece Hall at this point. Other news from around the NFL at the Combine today, Nick Caserio, the GM of the Houston Texans, said that trade rumors surrounding C.J. Stroud are moronic. And frankly, I agree with him. This is something that came up within the last couple of weeks. What if Houston, if they think they've hit the ceiling with C.J. Stroud? Well, one, I don't think they think that. I don't really think Stroud has hit his ceiling either. Now, he hasn't been as good the last 2 years after his rookie campaign. I think the environment around him has not been very good. There was very weird personnel usage with their young wide receivers for most of the year. And look, the playoffs were a disaster, but, Stroud, I thought, was okay during the second half of the year. He wasn't great, but he was okay. He wasn't a complete disaster. I still think there is more room for him to grow into being closer to the guy we saw as a rookie than the guy we saw certainly this year. Now, I will also add this. If you're into the advanced numbers, and not everyone is, you say, hey, get your nerd crap out of here, and I get it. I understand. But I do think if you go back and you look at some of the data, expected points added and depth of target and XYZ, there's a million things you could look at. The underlying numbers for C.J. Stroud that rookie year, when he won Rookie of the Year, they indicated he was more of a top 14 to 16 quarterback as opposed to like a top 7 or 8 quarterback. And now we've seen a little regression to the mean over the last couple of years. I thought it was crazy that his name was coming up in trade rumors. if he was actually out there, I think a trade would have been done already, to be completely frank with you. Like, Minnesota would have given up multiple first-round picks to go get C.J. Stroud right now if that was something that was on the table. I don't think it was. Have to agree with the Texans GM Nick Caserio there. Speaking of quarterbacks, let's get to this one first because it's so bad, and it's a quick one here. Andrew Berry, GM of the Cleveland Browns, said today that the QB job is up for grabs, that there's no built-in starter right now. And the two of the guys who could end up getting the job include Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. What a clown show. What an utter clown show. Even by Cleveland Browns post-return to the league standards, this is an utter clown show. The idea that you would ever put the nasty man back on the field is so alien to me. This dude is nothing but trouble. The last time we saw him before he tore his Achilles, which, by the way, he then re-tore during rehab, the last time we saw him play, he stunk. He was awful. He was, statistically speaking, whether you want to go with the basic stuff, the advanced stuff, the nerd metrics, whatever, one of the worst quarterbacks, one of the very worst in the entire NFL. He brings nothing but bad press and publicity to your team and your franchise. Why would you want that? And you're saying, yeah, we might put this dude who is buns, who also has a terrible reputation on the field? That's a crack. That's unbelievable. But yet, it's the Cleveland Browns. If my options are Shedeur or him, and I thought Shedeur stunk last year too, well, shoot, put the Pro Bowler back out there, the most recently minted Pro Bowler. Put him out there for 17 games. If those are my two options, very funny they drafted Dylan Gabriel before Shedeur, and he's apparently not even in the conversation. What a waste of a pick. But I can't believe this. Why would you do that to yourself and to your team and your players and your personnel and your fans? It's just gross, but hey, when your team is run by a literal felon, these things happen. Also, speaking of quarterbacks, Baltimore's Eric DeCosta, their GM today, said the Ravens have made a market-setting offer to their center, Tyler Linderbaum, and they are also confident they will get an extension done with Lamar Jackson. On the quarterback note here real quick, do you remember fairly recently, like, I don't know, a few seasons ago, when the Ravens were not so subtly dangling Lamar Jackson out there as a trade piece and no one jumped at the chance? The Atlanta Falcons, I would love to bring them up here. They could have and should have, as most teams in the league should have, traded 2 first-rounders, which is a hefty price, but you're getting a literal MVP quarterback still in his athletic prime. You could have traded two first-round picks to get that guy. Instead, do you know what's happened with 2 of the last 3 first-round picks over the last 2 years for the Falcons? You've got a quarterback in Michael Penix who is already a 24-year-old rookie who has once again a partially torn ACL. That's now his 3rd, and another major severe injury. That right now is trending toward bust town. And your second first-round pick from this year, who you traded up to get and gave up a top 15 pick in this year's draft. Oh, yeah, he may never play again because he was arrested and is facing some heinous charges related to a domestic incident and also crashing into a cop car. Could have used 2 of those picks to go get Lamar Jackson. But, hey, that's what the Atlanta Falcons do. The Ravens, they'll get this done. Lamar Jackson's the face of that franchise. Essentially, you know, if you listen to some of the national NFL reporting, it came down to, are you going to keep John Harbaugh in Baltimore, or are you going to keep Lamar Jackson? They went with the quarterback. I think they were right, probably. I know Lamar is not perfect, but he is a great talent. He's won a lot of games, and I think Harbaugh was probably close to overstaying his welcome in Baltimore, all things considered. But that's what other teams could have done. Any team in the league could have done it. The Jets could have done it. The Giants could have done it. And I know people are enamored with Jackson Dart right now. I'm not completely sold, but, you know, at least there's a little potential there. Lots of teams could have done it. But no, they decided not to. Those 2 first-round picks could be anything. They could maybe even potentially one day be Lamar Jackson, but good luck with that. Continuing on with today's 580 Sports Talk headlines, a few other pieces of news from the NFL. We've got offensive lineman news. Yeah, buddy, that's right. See, I think we have, as a football-consuming populace, gotten better about understanding the importance of offensive line and building in the trenches and how important the old hog mollies are up front. I think we've done a better job of understanding that. But we get to draft time and suddenly, we need receivers and quarterbacks and running backs and corners. We don't want to talk about linemen. We've got some big offensive lineman news. The San Francisco 49ers do not want to pay Trent Williams, who is in his late 30s now. He is going into his age 38 season. Still playing well. He's banged up quite a bit, but he's still playing well. 5-time Pro Bowler with San Francisco, 3-time first-team All-Pro. Has a second-team All-Pro as well. But he is due a mondo amount of money on the final year of his contract. He carries nearly a $39 million cap hit for next season. That would eat up nearly 13% of the San Francisco cap. They are trying to amend his contract to make it more palatable. They have to, because of the way it's structured, they have to negotiate that with the player and his agent. And Trent Williams, understandably so, is saying, hey, by the way, I'm a Hall of Famer. I'm still playing at a borderline Hall of Fame level, certainly an above-average starter, and the rest of this offensive line sucks on ice. Pay me. And I don't blame him. I really do not, because Trent Williams is by far the best lineman they have. Dominic Pooney, Kansas Jayhawk, he's good. I mean, he is a good, no doubt NFL starter. And everything else is yucky, gross, bad on that San Francisco offensive line. So Trent Williams is within all of his rights to pay him. And frankly, you signed the contract. You agreed to it. I want that money. I have a hard time blaming him. But if San Francisco needs that cap space and the two sides can't agree to an amended contract, Trent Williams is going to hit free agency. I don't think the Chiefs will be game for that because it's going to cost a lot of money, and they've already got to move around a lot. They've already done a lot with the Mahomes contract. They'll have to cut a couple guys, etc. I don't think they would be a player for that. You already know Josh Simmons is your left tackle, but that is going to send a shockwave through the NFL, and suddenly teams who need a left tackle are going to spend a whole lot of money, even if there's just one, maybe 2 seasons, to go get a guy like Trent Williams on their team coming up next year. So a fascinating piece of news there. Also, Taylor Decker, starting tackle for the Detroit Lions. He is going to return. He flirted with retirement, but he will return in 2026. Let's get to a couple other things real quick, then we'll get to our first commercial break of this 5 o'clock hour. An update for you on the Charles Bediako situation from Alabama. His temporary restraining order was lifted. He was no longer eligible to play for Alabama. The NCAA always said he was never eligible to play. The guy who had gone pro came back and played the pro games, etc., in the G League. Temporary restraining order allowed him to play, even though the NCAA said he was ineligible. The order was lifted, was denied any further eligibility. He has tried to take it all the way to the Alabama Supreme Court. However, according to documents obtained today by the Tuscaloosa News, a circuit court judge in Tuscaloosa refused Bediako's request of another TRO earlier this morning. Bediako will not be able to play in its next game, but it is now hoping that he can return for the postseason after an appeal to the Alabama Supreme Court. However, when Bediako's attorneys requested relief, this is from the Tuscaloosa News, it was argued that the time it would take for Bediako's appeal to resolve would exceed the remainder of this basketball season, making the continued fight for eligibility moot and null per court documents. So unless there is some other loophole to pull at here, this saga is over. Charles Bediako is not going to play any more basketball at Alabama. Get a different job, man. Go play overseas. There's a lot of leagues where you can go make some money, man. Go do something else. I'm not saying you can't ever play basketball again, but you've gone pro. You've grown up. You can't do this anymore, man. This is one area where I am 100% against the player movement, so to speak. I'm cool with guys being able to transfer. I've got no problem with guys making money. Going pro and coming back because you failed at that, not. That would be a hard no for me. If I was the czar of the sport and I knew I had immunity from lawsuits, I would absolutely cut that off. But as we know, the NCAA loses in court all the freaking time. Also, last thing for you, K-State fans, if you had Steve Forbes of Wake Forest on your board as a potential Jerome Tang replacement, cross him off, because Wake Forest announced today a vote of confidence. They always love to hear that. In their head coach, Steve Forbes, they expect to have him back for his 7th year next year. That was announced by their AD. Cat fans, do you know who the AD at Wake Forest is? John Curry. What a small world. That'll do it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. When we come back, we'll play a little random question Tuesday AMA style. Whatever you want to ask me about sports, about life, about food, about fun, whatever it is, hit me up on the text line or in the YouTube comments. We'll get to some random question Tuesday coming up after the break here on 580 Sports Talk. I say it literally every time. This is our bump music. But Voodoo Child is my personal favorite Jimi Hendrix song. I would venture to say the best, although there are many greats. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. This is 580 Sports Talk. Joining you here on this Tuesday afternoon. We've got 580 Preps Tuesday Night Hoops coming up here in just a little bit as Washburn Rural takes on Topeka High. Really fun doubleheader. We've got some incredible scenarios where we could have an all-teams tie in the conference standings in the Centennial League on the boys' side. 4 teams could share the title on the girls' side. It's awesome. There's nothing like late season and postseason high school and college basketball. Dan and Lat will have the call coming up here around the top of the hour here on 580 Sports Talk. Right now, though, we're going to play a little random question Tuesday. We've got a few that have come in. We're doing this AMA style. No one else is here. You see, if you're on the YouTube, you saw Britt Z walking behind me. Otherwise, nobody's around except me in the studio today, and I'm not going to ask myself questions. I do that enough when I'm talking to myself at home and in the office. So I would love to hear from you, your questions. What do you have for me? It can be about anything. Again, let's keep this PG-13 as best as we can. Otherwise, we can talk about anything. So we'll get to a few here. We will start in the YouTube comment feed. Some questions we already have coming in. This one from my guy Vance. What would your baseball walk-up song be? I feel like this is one that changes all the time. Honestly, this is a cheap answer because I literally just talked about this song. Voodoo Child by Jimi Hendrix would be an awesome walk-up song. Hulk Hogan used that briefly as his walk-up song when he was on SmackDown in WWE back in the early 2000s. I want to say circa 02, 03. Of course, I would know that. That's a great song, though. That one's right at the top of my head. You need something that's going to have a crescendo right away. You can't have anything with too much build-up. It's got to be within the first 3-4 seconds, have something that really hits. That's a good one, though. I love that riff so much. Also coming in today, we've got Vance has a couple for us. Let's stick with this. What would the title of a movie about your life be? I will also keep this PG-13. Man, that's a great question. I'm not as I say a lot on this program, I'm not the world's most exciting guy. I remember I'd said that one time that I didn't really party a lot in college. I was kind of like a hang out in the dorm and wait for my friends to come home from the bars kind of guy my freshman year. And I got ripped to shreds over that. At the time, hey, I was a kid. Give me a break. Movie about my life. I'm going to hold on to that one, Vance. If I can't come up with an answer today, I'm going to let that one marinate. I'm going to have an answer for you by the end of the week. When I'm on Friday's show, I'll have an answer for you. I'm going to need time to think about that one. I might ask my wife for help on that one. From Jeffrey, am I going to any Royals games this year? Buddy, I hope so. I love the K, and I know they're going to move, and I hope the new ballpark is great. I love the K. I hate getting all the way there. That's kind of annoying. It's a great park. It's easy to get around. I'm a big fan of Kauffman Stadium, so I hope I can get out there for at least a few, maybe take the kiddo out to her first game. I don't know that she'll last more than 4 or 5 innings maybe of a game during the summer months, but we'll see. I hope to get out to one. This one, crunchy or smooth peanut butter? Smooth every day of the week. I'll eat crunchy if it's all we've got, but make sure to give me some smooth. I just realized I already answered a question here from our guy, Mark B, who asks, what's the most fun thing I've done as a family with my daughter so far? And also, when will I be taking my daughter to her first live sporting event? So technically, on the most technical level, she was in attendance just before tip-off at last year's Central Region Final for the D2 NCAA tournament when Washburn beat Morehead State. Minnesota State, Morehead, excuse me. Morehead State's a D1 team. She was there during pregame. She didn't stick around for the game because she was 3.5 months old at the time and needed to go to bed. I don't know when we'll take her to her first game. It might be a Royals game this summer. Maybe we'll try to get a really cold, not cold, but a temperate late spring day. Get her out there, spend a few innings at the ballpark in between naps. Might try to do that. She does. I will say she got a little squishy basketball. Loves to play with it. Loves to dunk it back in the bucket we keep it in. So we're on the right track with her. There's no doubt about that. Most fun thing I've done with her. 2 real quick questions. Really recently, we got ice cream with her for the first time. She loved it. I have a million pictures. It was the cutest thing I've ever seen. That's recent, maybe not the biggest, but man, it was a lot of fun. Also, any chance that the NFL adopts the new the UFL rules that were announced today? That's from Andrew. Didn't get a chance to get to these in headlines. A field goal of over 60 yards is worth 4 points. You can't punt inside the 50-yard line. I love them both. Well, not the 4 points. It's too easy to kick balls now. So skip that one. No punting inside the 50? Yes, absolutely. We are short on time, so let's get to a very quick edition of our 580 Sports Talk, a final word.
One more thing.
In conclusion,
You better wrap it up.
We've got to get out of here, so I will make this one very quick. My final word is woof, as in woof, woof, woof. Every single time Melvin Council touches the ball, he is a marvel. This KU team has a ceiling as high as anyone. Great win last night. Keep it rolling this weekend against Arizona. We're out of here for 580 Sports Talk. For Dan, I'm Brendan. We will join you coming up tomorrow at 3. Right now, we're going to pass you off to 580 Preps Tuesday Night Hoops after this break here on 580 WIBW.